and welcome to this week's episode of Tara Time, where I am welcoming a wonderful guest who is not only a speech and language therapist, a founder of her own business, but also a really, really good friend of mine. Every week I'm coming live and bringing you new guests and digging into everything leadership, everything business, and sometimes everything Tara. So I'm going to bring Nisha Mistry in now and let her introduce herself. Hello, Nisha.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, I mean,
Hello.
Tara, you just introduced me. Thank you very much. I am a speech and language therapist, and I founded the Therapy Place, which is my speech and language therapy company. Yeah, that's it
Where in the
really.
world are you currently? That's a good intro as well. Where in the world are you
I'm
currently?
currently in Peru. I'm currently in Peru.
So I think as we started with, the whole starting a business, and it's not how we know each other, but it's one of the things that we do together now.
Yeah.
Let's start there. And like one of the things I wanted to talk about, because we talk about it weekly, daily, if not, whether it's on long WhatsApp
Yeah.
messages or whatever, but starting a business. So Nisha and I were in Peru at the same time, and neither of us had businesses at the time when we were there. And we used to regularly go to the cafe. We started, I don't know, talking whether we would do those kinds of things. Maybe we'd start a business. I started talking about it. Nisha started talking about it. We had another friend who was also talking about it at the same time. We called ourselves the Badass Business Bitches because that is exactly what we
Exactly.
were. And so I don't know how many months on are we now from the beginning of those conversations. And you have started a business, and I thought it'd be good for us to talk about highs and lows so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah. I mean, it was about a year ago this week that can you remember we were sat in the cafe and I was like registering my company on Company's House. And that was
Yeah.
about a year ago because I'm coming back round to, you need to pay for this now and you need to pay for this again. But yeah, that's a good a reminder of my anniversary. Yeah, I mean, from chatting to you, I'd kind of always talked about like, because I've lived in Dubai. I lived in Dubai for 8 years before we moved to Peru. And in Dubai, I was a clinical manager of a therapy center. And I was like learning all the skills to like manage. And I was like, when I go back to the UK, I'm not going to work for the NHS. I'm going to set up my own thing. And I was still like, do I do a baking business or do I do speech and language therapy as well? Like, those were two things. But yeah, I think it was a conversation that we had where because I was working for a teletherapy company based in the UK, and you were like, why can't you set up your business now and start it now? And I'm like, oh yeah, good point. So, that's where all that idea was, because I have a little bit of work here. I moved to Peru because my husband had a job here, because Matt had a job here, and the idea was like, I'll find something. I mean, that is the benefit of my type of job, is that wherever, even though I don't speak Spanish fluently, we, usually where there's an expat community, there will be a need, and there are schools and things like that. But because we moved mid-pandemic, that was a whole different, kettle of fish. But I feel like the pandemic has really like pushed this opportunity more than it would have done if we moved and it wasn't a pandemic. I just still think, God, I would have got a job, a full-time job in a school here or something. That would have been awful. And I wouldn't have been able to like
all of the time. Well, I think that point that you just said about, like, why not do it now? Like that's part of my general mentality. Like, why not just do it now?
Yeah.
And I think we often have these preconceived ideas, these plans that we've thought about, and it's like, well, when I go back to the UK, that's when I'm going to do it, because that's when I'm going to run the business. And I remember like us having that conversation, and it was like, well, why not get it set up now? Like, you're in a position where you've got time, you've got you've got the chance to actually do it more slowly and ease yourself into it, and don't, then by the time you get back to the UK, when that's planned, you've got a business that's flourishing, and you're tweaking and you're doing all those things later. And I think there's a thing, and obviously I did a similar thing where I was still in a full-time job and I started doing the business, and I think
I can't hear you. Yeah, I've lost you. It's muted. It's showing me the mute symbol. Can you hear me? Oh,
yes. Technological issues. Can you hear me? I can't hear you now.
How did that happen?
Let's change these audio settings. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can.
Excellent.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we're back on, right? Yeah. Sorry, my headphones are playing silly buggers today, so obviously I'm having a tech issue because nearly every day I have a tech issue. So, this mentality of like, let's just start early, let's start now. I think people think like to start a business, you have to have everything figured out. You have to be like full time doing it. You don't. Like, you can just, and I encourage everybody, like you said, you had a bit of work going elsewhere. You had that security, that safety, you've got like something else going on. That is the best time to start, because starting a business and solely relying on it immediately when it takes time to build means you're coming from a place of like desperation and lack and worry. And I just don't think you can operate a business, especially at a startup, from that point.
Yeah, exactly. And it is the perfect situation. Even now, like, okay, it was a year ago I registered on Companies House, but really I didn't start trading until like the May, June. And I was working 2 days a week at a school here in Peru as well. And, had a bit of income coming in, but even now, like, on year 2 now, I'm in a lucky position where actually there's no major pressure on me to earn money, even though I put that pressure on myself.
I was about to say, you're the queen of making that pressure.
Yes, it is. I'm in I have to keep kind of like stepping back and being like, sorry, can you hear my dog pattering about in the back?
It's fine. All dogs are welcome on Tara Time. All dogs are welcome.
But yeah, I have to step back and be like, calm down, it's fine. Because, I still, like, even yesterday I had a moment where I'm like, got to change like the way, and we'll talk about it later, but like now
we've got a coaching session later, so we'll dig right into that.
But it's like, oh God, I didn't, and it's like, of course I didn't know that when you first setting up, it's like, you actually don't know everything you need to know and put down, and that's okay. We're constantly, I'm sure people get to that stage like 5 years in and 10 years in as well. I'm sure there's that constant like, oh, I need to change this angle or whatever.
All right, so 2 things. What's the best thing about starting a business for you so far, and the worst thing about starting a business for you so far? The 2 things.
Okay. The best thing is flexibility. Like flexibility, freedom, all the F's.
All the F's. Fucking wonderful.
Yeah. I can walk my dog, I can go to the gym, I can go on holiday when I want to. I don't have to ask for anyone's permission. And also, like, I will go on holiday, I'm going on holiday tomorrow, and I'm going to take my laptop with me. But it's not like, oh, I've got to work on holiday. It's like, I want to just do an hour here and there because it's my business. Like, there's lots of things there that actually I think I've just told you loads of things that the best thing is, and I feel really, I don't know if smug is the right word.
Yes. I was about to say, is the not best thing not saying, excuse me, do you not know I'm a director, actually? Is that not the best thing?
Do you have to ask someone if you can go on holiday? Oh, you can't just work from home. And, it's just like, And I have to stop myself when I hear people having conversations where I have to, I'm just so glad I just work for myself. Poor you.
Right, what's the worst thing? Because it isn't also that bit is sure the best thing, right? But what's the worst?
The worst thing, difficult to pinpoint. It's difficult to pinpoint. I think for me, it's the pressure, because the pressure is all on me, and there's a lot, like the success of this business is on me. And I mean, I do work well under pressure, but this is like, it's been such a huge learning curve. Like, that's the other thing, is like, you're everything. You're everything, from the person who has the idea, the person who's delivering the services, from the admin side of it, from the sales side of it, from the marketing side of it, from the social media side of it, from the accounting side of it, you know, all of that is on. And at the moment, like, that's probably,
it's a lot.
Pressure of all of that. Yeah.
I think I always say you have to be extremely self-led. If you haven't got that discipline, or you don't have that ability to lead yourself, like, don't even try. Like, if you can, like, just honestly, you really, really, because there's nobody else. Nobody's going to give you a performance review. Nobody's going to tell you that you haven't done the right thing. Nobody's going to, you know, and I was about to say, nobody's going to hold your hand. You have to reach out to find somebody to hold your hand. Like that, and that's exactly what I did when I first started. I was like, I don't know what any of this shit is. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where to start. I know I want to do it. I know I'm going to be great at it. I know it's going to be fantastic, but holy smokes, I don't know what I don't know. So when I started that, it was like, okay, find somebody who does. And for me, I actually had a conversation with a new potential client yesterday, and I was like, proximity is key. Finding somebody who's just done it, because I think the landscape changes, social media changes, like the business trends change, the way you do things change. So, and there is space for that mentorship for somebody who's you know, running £1 million business and started 10 years ago. And I have mixed and matched, but I've always kept my person who's like a year ahead of me, a year and a half ahead of me, because it's like there's just this proximity that I'm like, okay, you just.
Yeah, and those things that are kind of fresh in their mind as well. Because, like, if you ask us in 10 years' time when we're multi-billionaires, we won't remember those little, you know, like, apart from that, everything will have changed. But also, it's like, did I do that? I can't remember. Like, I barely remember what I did, like 10 minutes ago. But like, that's such a good point.
Yeah, I think so. All right, I think they're really good ones. So, and maybe we should, well, I'm going to move on, but maybe we should have actually started with this. But an interesting thing about Nisha and I, so we met in Dubai, but we had both lived there you'd lived there for, I think, 8 years.
8 years, yeah.
I'd lived there for 5. So we'd been in the same country for 5 years over the same period of time. I worked with Nisha's husband, but kind of like not on a like daily, wouldn't see him on a daily basis. We worked for the same company on a huge project, so didn't really see much of him. Knew of him, knew his name. Never met Nisha. I don't think. Maybe in a group environment or once.
I'm sure I saw you at an iftar, and I was like, I like her. It was a northern like gobbiness. I was like,
always stands out. But we never like our social circles never crossed. No. And then this opportunity came up in Peru, and both Matt and I were taking on this opportunity in Peru. So we just started talking about, you know, what are you doing? How are you moving there? What's the thing? You know, where are you looking to live? Like, we just, what you do, mainly, what are you doing with the damn dog? It was mainly about the dog.
Special thing of that move.
And I think we invited you around. We had dinner or something. Yeah, we
invited you around for dinner. An amazing roast. I was like, I'm going to be friends with this person.
Made an amazing roast dinner. That was it, right? I made a roast dinner. We got on like house of fire. Wonderful. You actually moved to Peru, I think, 3 months before we got And very, very kindly, by the time we got there, Nisha had set up our whole friend circle, so we didn't have to do anything. We arrived, wonderful.
All two of us.
All two of us, that's the space I've got for. And also, like, so that's, I would say, that's where our friendship flourished. And I think international friendships are fucking weird. So I think we should talk about it. Like, I'm actually delivering a program at the moment called Global, which is talking all about like moving abroad, living abroad, having, you know, all of that stuff. And this international friendship piece is an interesting one, because I think it's so intense, isn't it? Like, compared to friendships at home, it's really intense and fast. It is.
Yeah. And because your friends become your family, because you don't see your family. You don't see, like, on a weekend, like if you're in the UK, like most people, I don't know if that's a fact, but I feel like wherever I move to, most people live near their families. And I mean, I know you moved away from home in the UK even, and as did I. But yeah, when you're like living in Dubai, I feel like Dubai was different to Peru, because Dubai is more longer term when people move. Most people, they have that 2-year, 3-year plan, and 10 years later they're still there. And people really like root themselves down. Whereas Peru is definitely, we've lost, 18 months in and they've gone, and you're like, I just want to know you. I don't want to be my friend forever. Yeah, it's really difficult, and I feel like it's more difficult for me the older I get, because the older I get, the more introverted I get as well. Mm-hmm. And I, when I moved to Dubai, we were like, yeah, let's go to that brunch and this brunch, and we were like, yes to everything, to the point in the first 2 months it was like, we've spent more than we've earned. Yeah. But like moving to Peru was such a different situation. It was, because it was pandemic as well. Everyone had there was a big group of people that had ended up moving at the same time that worked for the company that you worked for and Matt works for. And it was kind of good because everyone was staying at the same hotel at the same time, so you got to meet people. But then I was like, I don't want to be friends with my husband's colleagues. Like, that's the introverted side of me as well. Because 10 years ago, I'd have been like, great, we've got all these people. And so I was kind of like battling with that. But I was like, no, like, we've been invited to this. I have to say yes. Otherwise, I'm not going to meet. It's going to be really hard to meet people. So you have to like put yourself out there. And, I know people that haven't done that. Who didn't do it in Dubai, who didn't do it here, and they're like really miserable. They're not enjoying the experience, and it's like if you've chosen to move to a country, you have to put yourself out there, and it might take a while to sort the wheat from the chaff, if you like. Yeah. But you have to go through that process, otherwise, unless you're super lucky.
Yeah. Unless you're super lucky, somebody set it up for you, by the time you're right. No, but you're right. Like, I am also, to most people's surprise, I suffer terribly with social anxiety, like to the point where I will get a horrendous migraine at the thought of going into a new group setting. So that's pretty difficult as an expat, where you're absolutely right. You have to do these things as like, unless you want to be lonely, unless you don't want to meet that one or two. And it doesn't mean you have to have a huge circle of friends. Like, I don't do that. I didn't do that in Peru. I did it more in Dubai. It was a bigger group, but eventually it honed down. Never did it in Peru. Had like 2 really, really close friends in Peru. And then here I've done exactly the same. Like, I know what I've got capacity for now. But you're right. You might have to go and meet 10, 20 people before you find those people, because they, you will find them. Like, it doesn't matter where you go, you'll find them. Yeah. And I think that those, like I said, the friendships blossom so fast, and like you get to know each other so much, because you, like you say, you have this immediate common ground. Like, you've got all of these experiences that are immediate common ground. So like, you've got somewhere to start. And I think as that introverted thing, like, I've put myself into group scenarios where, and I went somewhere the other week. Remember, we were messaging, and I was like, I'm going to a pool party with lots of people I don't know, and I'd done something else as well. I can't remember. And you went, "What?" Oh, I'd exercised, I think, and you're like, "What? Where's she gone?" Like, it's all right. But it was, you know, a really nice time, and sometimes as well, like those things are nice to just meet interesting people for one time. You don't have to make the best of friends with everybody. Like, I think that's a mistake a lot of people make as well. Like, okay, yeah, I'm going to try and make this enormous circle, and now I can't keep on top of it. And now I feel really bad for saying no. Like, it's just finding the balance, I think.
Yeah. And I think, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think definitely being, and like I said, as I've got older, definitely becoming more introverted. I think, like, you know, people who get to know me, they know that, oh, Nisha went out. You know, it's like, oh, Nisha's, was it fun Nisha today? You know, like, you know, fun Nisha comes out like a couple of times.
My favorite Nisha is fun Nisha.
But yeah, like I think I don't like the idea of socializing with groups. Build it up, like you build it up in your head. And I feel like in Dubai, that wasn't something that happened with new people as much. Like, you've got your group and one person, that other person's a new person, because you've already got your friendship group. But once you've made it, but like in like anywhere else, I think it's like constantly like new potential meets and things like that. But and also, like, once you've found, you know, once you invested that like 1 or 2 months in saying yes to everything, you can figure out your top 3. Top 3. And then you can confidently go, thanks for the invite. No, I can't make it. I'm getting better at not really having to give a reason, and people know me now. They're like, yeah, that's fair enough. If, you know, it's a Sunday 5 p.m. thing, and you have a rule about Sundays that you don't do anything after 4 p.m. You know,
boundaries,
exactly.
Boundaries. All right. So from one place to the opposite of group things, I want to talk solo trips and time alone. So something that Nisha and I bonded over, I would say almost immediately, was our shared love of spending time alone in our own company in an empty house, for what we call an empty. So
I have to credit my friend Janice for that term. She's probably on this, she's really non-social media, but like Janice, who's a very good friend in Dubai, she coined the term an empty.
Is she Scottish? Because I think
she's Irish.
Scottish. Ah, there we go then. Because I've heard it before from a Scottish person, and I'd not heard it before in the UK either. So I think it was maybe okay. There we go. And it is such a wonderful term, and I use it and I spread it widely now. So it is essentially when all of the other humans that you may live with, husbands, wives, children, whatever, not dogs stay in the empty. They've all left. You've got all of the peace and quiet and just time to do whatever it is you want, whether it's for a couple of hours or even better, extended for a whole golf day was our favorite. That was the best thing. And I remember the first time this happened, I think Matt and Tom had gone to play golf, and Nisha and I were messaging each other from our own empties, and we were like, we're not even the people who were like, shall we do something because they're doing something? We're like, shall we talk about how good it is being on our own? Let's do that.
It was so funny. It was like a mutual understanding, because whenever, like, and it's such a thing, isn't it? It's like, oh, the boys are doing something. Should the girls do something? Or the girls are doing something. Should the boys do it? They do that because they don't.
They do that because they don't like their own company. That's the problem.
But like with us, it was just like, we're good. And then like, we had the whole day, and then they came back absolutely trolley and like ruined my empty, even though we already had the whole day. But yeah, it is. Yeah, I love solo time.
But you've taken this to the next level. So I want you to tell people about how you've taken it to the next level.
So there's a beautiful place in Peru called Mankara, and it's like a beachy place. And we'd been there a couple of times on holiday, on like group trips. We went with you one Easter, and we did like a solo trip in October. And I'm like, this is the goal. This is my dream. This is where I want to work from. And literally, whilst I was on that long weekend away, I booked myself a week. I'm like, I can work from wherever I want. Why would I not work sat by the beach? You know? So I did that a couple of weeks ago. Went for a good 8 days on my own. Just amazing. It was just amazing. I would wake up to the sound of the waves, you know, had breakfast because it was a little Airbnb, but they provided breakfast. So it was so nice. Just sat, do my work, take my calls. When my day, you know, maybe have a 1 hour break, sit in the hammock, read my book. After my calls are done in the afternoon, go and dip in the sea. I would recommend it to anyone. Like, I was really happy on my own. Like, obviously, like, I called my husband every other day, you know.
And you
know, actually, it's a really nice time to catch up on calls with friends and, you know, things like that. Because usually, like, you're in your house and there's always, like, a dog to walk or washing up to do or dinner to make or things like that. And it was just like, I was crocheting. I learned how to crochet.
Who usually has the time for that? Like, that is it. PJ is going to be so proud of you.
Yeah, like,
that is the
it was. So I didn't get to a point where I'm like, oh, I want to see people now. I think because I was like having like online sessions and things like that, so I didn't feel lonely. They were like, the Airbnb people were really nice, but like, who were about all the time. But it was just, oh my God, I feel like once a year I'm going to do it for a week. I've been on holidays by myself, which I also loved. I just love it.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything. You do what you want to do. You don't have to listen to what anyone else wants to do. Eat when you want to eat and what you want to eat and where you want to eat. And yeah, I would recommend it. If you have the opportunity, because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get the opportunity to do this again. And I mean, with all due respect to Matt, you know, he could have been like, oh, well, no, because, you know, I go to work, I've got to look after Malcolm, the dog. I don't, you know, it's probably technically like, you know, because I'm not earning loads at the moment. It's like, it's our money, but like, but he's like, yeah, no, you don't. And he never moaned once about that. So I am very lucky in that, you know, because he could have made me feel guilty about that because he had to, you know, walk the dog before work and get home in time to walk the dog, like, you know, all of this. So
but it's a good thing as well of like, you know, sometimes we do a lot of things. We do a lot of things for other people. And it's also a realization of, oh my God, all of those things that person does that they never know. Like, people don't know. And it's not that you don't want to do them. It's not, but sometimes like, it's just good for that piece of appreciation as well to say, actually, these are all the things that I do usually that you might not even notice. Exactly. But just, I think, to step away, have the time. I think also some people struggle with time alone. And it's a thing that everybody should try and practice, because if you can just have some like time with your own thoughts, like the mental clarity that comes, that's not from noise of other people or what other people think you should do or opinions or ideas or whatever it might be. Like, I think that alone is a really useful, powerful thing to do, is to spend some time alone. Like, I think that's just really, really important. Absolutely. I'm just checking in here to make sure there's no comments or anything. Okay. So we've done starting up a business, highs and lows. We've done international friendships. We've done alone time. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, because it's something that came up right from the beginning when we decided to start working together as well. And actually, that's another topic we should talk about, friends and client, because lots of people say it can't work. So we're going to talk about that. But before that is, you obviously work as a speech and language therapist. And I've worked with a couple of other business owners who are in caring professions, right? and naturally they tend to be like quite empathic people as well, and really, really struggle with that shift of how do I charge? And I think especially when people have worked in like a national health service where people access those services for free, and now not technically for free because they're paid in other ways, but you know, it is that how do I charge, and it feels uncomfortable. And just I think if you could share a little bit about that process and how it went for you and your thoughts, and that would be really useful for people who might be doing the same.
Yeah. So before I moved to Dubai, I worked in the NHS for eight years. So I feel like when anyone's working for like a government funded where the actual client isn't paying for it, and then you move out of that, it's really you kind of become a bit like indoctrinated. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like, oh no, but you know, to move to private, even if you're a teacher, if you're a therapist, if you're, you know, whatever, it's like, oh no, but what I'm doing is good. This is good. If I move to the other side, that's bad. Like that is, and you know, you hear, you know, this is why the art, they've managed to keep these people, you know. I think the NHS is amazing. And I think, you know, state education in the UK, what an amazing thing. That is, so from leaving the UK, I can really appreciate that. Oh my God. You know, I remember having to explain to someone in Dubai, I'm like, oh, if you need to go to the hospital, you just go to the hospital, you know.
Yeah.
And then you leave when you've been treated, you know. If you need to go to school, you just go to school, you know. And I know there are issues with the system, but yeah, like when I moved to Dubai and it was like £100 for my therapy session that the parent was paying for out their pocket, I'm like, oh shit. Oh my God, pressure. But I wasn't charging that personally. That was the centre that was charging it. So I felt the pressure. It was like, yeah, but it's not me. It's not my fault. And then I just think I mean, look, it's been 10 years I've been out of the public system and I'm still like, ugh. But what I find is the problem is mine. I think it's this NHS trauma, but I am like, but you know, the price is not. I've had to increase the price, and nobody asks they're just, you know, I tell them the price, and they go, okay. You know, somebody asked for one of my clients wanted a report, and you know, it was face to face, and I couldn't. I was like, oh, let me just send you the report options on email, and then you can tell me, because I didn't want to say, if you want this report, it'll be this much. If you want this kind of report, it'll be this much. I'm still like, don't like talking about money. It's easier to have somebody to do that for me.
Well, I'm just going to write that down as something that we're going to work on in the future. I think there's a piece of this that isn't only about, it's not only about caring professions and working in places where, like you say, client facing wasn't paying the money themselves. Because I think as generally we have an issue with talking about money. Like generally we have a fucking issue with talking about money. Like especially like in the UK, if you think about the lack of salary transparency, it is absolutely taboo to talk about what you earn. Like that is rude and grotesque and awful, and we wouldn't do such a thing, which is ridiculous. And it also enables the kind of like complete lack of transparency and discrepancies in salaries in companies, whether that's gender based, whether that's whatever it is. Like it enables that. But I think we have these kind of money beliefs about, you know, whether we should talk about it, or what happens when you start to talk about it, your mouth dries up and you feel really uncomfortable, and you feel like somebody else is thinking all of these other things, which they're probably not. It just takes practice, I think, and like shifting the narrative in your brain to be able to do that. Because when I first started my coaching business, to be able to say my prices out loud made me feel sick. Now I like it's part of doing the work, and you know, there's a lot of money mindset work out, like podcasts, you know, if it's something that I'd never even heard of before I started coaching and before I started my business, this word money mindset. And actually it does, all of these beliefs are in our brain, and that's what stops us being able to go, sit on a call and say, the price for this report is this, the price for that is, without feeling those weird feelings. So like there's a process to go through. And I think it's a really important part of like business ownership to go through that. But it takes time, and you know, it's another thing that you don't need to learn about, know that you need to learn about, that you need to learn about.
Yeah. And and also like we always I think like, you know, like I say, it probably isn't just caring professions. It's like, oh, well, I'll just give them a discount. And one of our friends, who's a pricing consultant, why? Why are you giving them a discount?
Yeah. The best thing I ever heard about discount giving was like somebody said, who the fuck are you to suggest that person needs a discount, to take their like to make an assumption about their affordability, about anything. Like actually, like who are you to make that assumption? You're not. Like you're letting preconceptions get in the way of the truth, and actually it's like it's almost a form of judgment. Well, this person needs a discount, or they might not be able to afford it. How do you know? You don't know. Like, so don't make those kind of preconceived discounts.
Actually, someone yesterday, but slightly, it's one of my clients yesterday asked me if I could give them a discount on sessions. Again, I was like, oh, I didn't want to have this conversation face to face. I was like, oh, let me just, I'll email you because I've got another session now, so we'll chat. And I was like, no, because that's not fair to my other clients. Like, why am I giving you a discount? And that's my whole work. Like, that's my whole, like, principles of my business. Is like, and this is the thing, like, this is why I don't provide discounts for multiple session bookings. Because, oh, what, the person that can afford to pay for 10 sessions up front gets a discount, but the person that can't doesn't. So that is like a big no-no for me. You know, I'm like, this is how much my time costs. And I am, you know, actually, I think my prices are at the high end for my therapy. But like, there's so many, like, why am I devaluing the service I'm providing and then also being unfair to other clients? Yeah. So yeah, lots to consider when it comes to discounts.
Yeah.
And it's lovely for the client. I think, you know, I had a client cancellation fees. I'm not very good at following through on that. And I've subsequently lost a client when, like, the 5th time they've done it, I've gone, and I still didn't charge them, but I'm like, next time you will be charged for this. And they never booked it again. But it's like, fine.
It's like fine, because and that's the thing, you actually don't want clients like that in your business, because they, you know, like you say, that's gonna continue to happen. You don't want to be encouraging that kind of behavior, because it just keeps happening. And I've had the same. I've had like client defaulting payments that I have to deal with, and it's a really uncomfortable and difficult thing to navigate. I think that's definitely one of the worst things of being a business owner, having to navigate default payments. And it's, you know, it's like, this is one of the really interesting things is this is not a reflection of you. It is nothing to do with you. This is somebody else's issue that they're dealing with. And, you know, it comes, you know, when you get to be talking about, you know, if we're not talking about one session, if you're talking about 10 sessions or a course or something, you know, like, you know, how are you covering yourself as a business as well? So something to consider is like, what have you got your terms and conditions in place that you can really clearly refer to, because that also takes the emotion out of things. If somebody's, you know, agreed to terms and conditions, you don't have to get into anything other than these are the terms and conditions you agreed to. But, you know, it makes things really simple. So how can you set yourself up? But I think the money mindset work, it continues for us both. It is something that, like, you know, you have to keep working on as a business owner. All right, then let's go to friendship client. Like, how can you have a client who is your friend? And there's people that sit in either side of these camps. And even for me, like, I've gone as far as I've had, like, my first coaching client was my mum. My mum is still inside my coaching membership, which is hilarious. And, you know, she was like, people say to her, oh my God, do you actually pay to be in your daughter's? And she's like, yeah, I do. Don't give me anything for free. She's running a business. No mate's rates for me. And so it, you know, I can understand people who would say, oh, it's a bad idea. You know, it can be dangerous for a relationship and a friendship. My view is that you know who it's going to work with and who it's not going to work with. Like, I don't think there's an across the board situation here, like work with your friends or don't work with your friends. There's friends of mine that I wouldn't work with. There's friends of mine who are my favourite clients in the world, and I literally get giddy about sessions. Like this, I said to Tom this morning, I looked at my diary and went, "Oh, I've got Nisha in. I've got Nisha in this afternoon." That's how I feel like about having, having those sessions and things like that. So I don't know. What's your thought on it?
Do you know, from a clientee perspective?
Yeah.
Actually, no, from both client, yeah, client.
Clientee.
Clientele.
Speech and language therapist.
Actually, no, it's not from any perspective. I think it depends on who, and I think it's a learning curve as well. Because your friends are your friends, and yes, you kind of know the people who you wouldn't have challenges with, but it depends, because when it comes to money, that can be a challenge, or communication, or and I work with a couple of friends on other things like website stuff, design stuff. I am working with friends, and they would probably agree there have been some challenges where it's like, oh, well, you didn't tell me that was going to cost more. You actually haven't given me an invoice yet. Like, I don't know. You kind of gave me a ballpark figure on a WhatsApp message 9 months ago, but you still haven't invoiced me. But because you're my friend, I feel a bit like I don't want to keep asking for this. And now, like, by the way, I did 3 times as much work, and it was like, you need to communicate that to me. We're all like small business owners and learning. We're all learning. But things like that, oh, your estimated time of completion is, Friday, and then 3 months later.
Yeah.
But if that wasn't a friend, you could be like, no, you said this is going to be. You can be a bit like. So I think it really depends on the situation and who the friend is as well, and and who you are as well. It's been
boundaries again. I think it's boundaries again. If you can set those out, and for me, my top advice is if you know that you've got the friends that you can work with, do freaking work with them, because it can just bring you the most amount of joy that you could ever imagine. Don't listen to everybody who says just don't work with your friends because it'll never work out, because that is a blanket piece of advice that is not relevant. I would say be cautious, think about it, make sure that you are really, really clear, and treat them. And here's what I think is, treat them like a proper client. Give them the respect that they deserve don't think, oh, I don't want to invoice them because they're a friend and I don't want to charge them money. I'm going to invoice them and I'm going to treat them exactly like I would any client. And that's like from the way we work together, from a coaching perspective, that is exactly how I treat you. You get the same payment links as everybody else, same payment terms, same, all of that kind of stuff. It's not like there's any, like, I'm going to treat you any different to my clients. You get the same level of treatment. You get the same level of professionalism. You get all of that, because that's what enables us to have that relationship that is a professional relationship as well. And so I think, I
actually feel in our situation, I feel like I benefit more because you're my friend. Because I think if you weren't my friend, I wouldn't be sending you all those WhatsApps and voice notes and this and that, which are like, it's just it. Yeah, I feel like I benefit more the fact that we are friends, because of the way I would behave differently if it was somebody like more formal.
Yeah, and that's the reason I would say, if you can and if you think it will work, do it, because and I have had multiple, like, I've had a few friends and a couple of family members as well that I've coached, and the outcomes have been insane because of that. Because we're set off like 20 miles ahead, because we already know so much about each other. We don't have to spend the first 3 or 4 sessions getting to know each other, getting a rhythm, getting a whatever. It's like dive right in. So like the value is so much more, and I already know how you operate, and I know, those types of things, because we've been friends. We've got that background. So I think that's my advice. If you can and you think it'll work, give it a go. But if whatever you do, be really, really clear on the boundaries, be really, really clear around payments, and be really clear about like expectations at the beginning and what's included, what's not included, you know, all of that stuff, I think. And it can be really great. Well, clearly it can be really freaking great. All right. Before we finish, I have a question, because I like to do a little like this. Like I said, we like to talk about all things business. We've done all things leadership, and we've definitely talked about self-leadership and the importance of that, and things Tara, which we may have slightly touched on. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a brave question. What is your favorite thing about working with me?
My favorite thing about working with you, I would say, yeah, I think it's like the way you are kind of like brutally honest, but not in a brutal way, if that makes sense. Like, because you know, I know, like, you are like a, you know, badass, white, like, and you're not, you know, you're not mean, and that's like, and I think it works with, because that's what I need someone. I don't want someone to pussyfoot around me and be, you know, like, call me out, you know, whatever. And I think, yeah, I mean, that's like, I can't really pinpoint one thing, but I'd say that, like, that whole, that's the way you work is like your approach.
Yeah, that is one thing that's really interesting. Is like you just said, I don't need somebody to pussyfoot around me. That's not what I want. That's also not what I want in a client, and that might be right for people. And this is really important when you're, especially if you have a coaching business. Like, there are clients that are right and that are wrong for you. There are coaches that are right and that are wrong for you. It doesn't mean that they're a bad coach or a bad client or a bad whatever. It's about finding the chemistry. And again, like, I had a call with somebody yesterday, and I was like, the most important part of a call, like a clarity call or a sales call, whatever, discovery call, whatever you want to call it, is there chemistry? And like, do you have the same things? And it was actually a guy yesterday I was speaking to, and he was like, what I really need is someone who isn't offended and also will join me in swearing. And I was like, tick. And somebody who's brutally honest and will kick me up the arse when I need to be kicked up the arse. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, that is my style. And it's certainly not for everybody. And even when I, you know, post a social post or certain emails, like, you know, I've got an ever-growing email list, and certain emails, when I send an email that's a bit pointy and people don't like, I'll notice people start to unsubscribe and they don't like it. And I'll celebrate that, because I'm like, yes, you people weren't my people. That's making space for more of my people.
Yeah.
So I love that. I'm going to keep up with the brutal honesty. And I think
that actually is the same, like, as a speech and language therapist. It's like, I have a certain way of doing things. There are other therapists that have different ways, and like, and it's not as a professional, it's not taking it personally as well. It's like, that's a really good way to look at, oh, they didn't like that, but that's fine, because there'll be someone else that is more suitable for them. Yeah. You don't need to have all of the people.
Yeah,
following you.
I'm just checking in here about comments. Somebody's saying, can I ask something? Yes, of course, Natasha. Please fire away and ask a question if you're still here. I got carried away there and I missed those comments. But yeah, please feel free to ask. And if we don't get around to it on here, because I think my laptop battery is about to run out as well, we'll definitely answer it in the comments for you. Oh, here we go. Can you be great friends and business partners at the same time? Right. Well, I have got a guest who I'm going to answer that question with you in the future as well, because, and I think yes, I think you can, but like we said, it absolutely has to be the right person. I mean, not only have I gone into business with my husband, which many people, again, wouldn't do, or wouldn't be right for them. It's been right for me. I've also gone into business with a friend who I never met in real life, only met on the internet. I'm meeting her in real life this year, but we're very, very good friends, even though we've never met in real life, and it's working beautifully at the moment. But I think the same goes with boundaries and communication and setting out all of that like you would with a real business partner.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Nisha?
Yeah, I think, you know, because I've always been brought up, like my parents have their own business, they're retired now, but they've always kind of sent the message not like this said it directly, but indirectly. It's like, you've got to be careful who you work with when money's involved. Like, it gets complicated. So I've always been like, oh no. That's like embedded in my head there. But I do think you're right. Like, boundaries, getting things clear, written down, so there's no, it's black and white. There's no ambiguity of like, you know, what if.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you know, and where does business? There's like a whole thing of like, you know, where does business end and friendship start as well? Because if you only ever speak about business, and this was obviously, I have this boundary with Tom when we work together, also with Jess, but even like with clients as well. Like, if when we went on holiday together, we traveled together this Christmas, and if we'd have only spoken about coaching or business or everything and nothing else, like, it's weird. That's not what our friendship was before. And and obviously we talk a lot more about it, and we get very excited, very giddy about it. Yeah. And I think there's another thing as well of, and this actually more, it goes back to being the client side as well, of like, how do you need to differentiate? And I've done this with some people and not with others. And again, it's about really feeling what's right. Like, do you differentiate a WhatsApp chat where you talk about coaching only or not? And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. And that goes with the person, right? Is this person going to take the piss? Like, do I need to, you know, like, is it, you know, can I have a frank conversation? Are they expecting me to answer every 2 seconds? Like you said, you know, we have conversations over WhatsApp, and we work one-to-one. So that is part of my one-to-one support in terms of providing stuff in between sessions that I do with any of my clients. But if I was in a position where I thought, oh, do you know what? Nisha's not going to know the difference between, she's going to expect me to respond at every 1 second, and I'm not going to be able to say, no, I can't. I've got a relationship with you where I'll be like, I can't answer that right now. I'll be able to look at that at the end of the week. And we do, and we have those types of exchanges. Yeah. So I think it's just about, you know, knowing who you're going in with, knowing what your relationship is, setting up your boundaries right. And
absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Right. Thank you very much. We are just
starting for having me.
And it was really, see, you didn't need to prepare. Nisha and I had this big long conversation about whether she prepare or not. I was like, no, we're just gonna come on and have a conversation.
I didn't.
Yeah, but Natasha, I'm going to be bringing a guest on maybe next week, maybe in a couple of weeks' time, who is a business partner, who is a friend. So you might want to tune into that, and we'll talk all about how that works too. So thank you very much, and I will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, remember to hit like, subscribe to my channel so you never miss an episode, and leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this episode, remember